Another thing that I hear from people a lot. That's it. I'm done. I'm getting help. And then you just go back to the same exact cycles. How many times did you say enough is enough? When did you know you were serious about saying enough is enough?
I know enough to know that if I bring porn into a marriage, it's thoughts of suicide will always come and go, just be a normal, everyday thought. I wasn't able to be emotionally stable. Even the smallest stresses, I'd start freaking out on people about. By the time I'm on my deathbed, look back and say, I started a business, I got it up to speed and running, step away from it where it'll still be self-sufficient, like I'll just get that passive income. 20 years in the Marine Corps, I'll be able to retire when I'm 44, own a few houses.
All right. Well, thanks for joining today, everyone. I have with me Kyle. He's actually been a part of the program for a bit now, and he has gone through quite a journey. So, Kyle, welcome. Thank you for showing up here today. I'm glad we're able to make this happen. I've definitely enjoyed our time working together, and the transformation that you've gone through is absolutely incredible. So I'm excited to dive in today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, so one of the first things I want to dive into is really just getting to understand, like, what was life like before you started quitting porn and before you really got in touch with us? Like, can you give us a bit of insight into what was going on in your life?
So really the kind of overarching atmosphere, I would call it, of my life was just more numb, gloomy, and just very little joy in it. Even when I would accomplish things like certain life goals or something good would happen in my life, it really didn't have that level of joy associated with it for me. I just look at it and say, oh, like I didn't do this right, so I don't really deserve this. In terms of like family relations, they weren't the best. They weren't horrendous by any means, but it just wasn't conducive to a happy and healthy relationship between me and my parents, even me and my two sisters. And
Could
so
you
really it's
actually
just
dive into that a little bit, like as best you can? What was really like going on that was really like causing conflict inside of you because of family relations and all that?
so the biggest thing, like my mom has clinical depression, and in terms of like the mother son relationship, a lot of the issues were emphasized and exaggerated greatly. I wasn't able to cope with or handle my own emotions due to like certain conflicts between me and her as well as I should have. And really that just kind of created a lot of animosity within me towards her. Really didn't truly understand that she wasn't doing it on purpose. Like if she had a choice, she would obviously choose not to let her own issues affect mine and her relationship. But I was pretty immature in that sense. And so with my dad, he was more just emotionally unavailable. And a lot of that was due to him working hard to provide for his family, which I can't blame him for it. Like, I'm grateful for that. But what was left over, he always had to divert it to taking care of my mom, being emotionally available for her. And so when it came to me needing validation for something growing up or just needing to feel seen and loved as a son, he wasn't really there for that. And so that left a lot of emptiness in me. And all this combined kind of pushed me towards looking for porn for that release, for that validation, knowing like, okay, at least this person on the other side of the screen won't be judging me. They'll always be there for me. But yeah, I failed to realize like the negative implications, both short term and long term after that.
Yeah.
Now I've realized and have seen how bad that can be and huge detriment to mental health. And so, yeah, really family relations was kind of like the biggest issue I had growing up from junior high all throughout high school. And what what kind of really started triggering me to realize how bad of a spot I was in was just like the mental health aspect. I never really tried it, but like thoughts of suicide will always come and go, as in like it just be a normal everyday thought. And after a while, like I wasn't able to be emotionally stable. Even the smallest stresses, I would start freaking out on people about. I would start things and then start getting in my own mind like, oh yeah, you're incapable of completing this. You should quit. A lot of that happened in college when I tried out for certain specialty clubs for the military school I went to. They're easily doable. A lot of people have gone through them. It's just the mindset I had told me, yeah, you're not good enough for this. Don't bother trying. And so all that compounded really took away the drive that I had. Thankfully, it didn't take away my aspirations for my life goals. Those stayed solid the entire time, but just the little things building up to it just never happened. And so, yeah, really just mental health. Like I was tired of feeling like crap every day. Like just no energy, no drive, no desire to even want to be around it all. So that was the biggest trigger.
Absolutely. So, can you talk a little bit about how your life goals were impacted, or how you see they could have been impacted? Had you have continued to go the direction you were going with porn addiction and all that?
Yeah. So my biggest life goal is to become an officer in the Marine Corps. That was something I wanted to do ever since I was 9. The only thing that changed was going from enlisted to being an officer. And with that, like there's an immense amount of dedication, training, patience, which I'm still learning patience. That'll probably be a lifelong goal of mine. But all that goes into play to be able to accomplish that. And so, had I stayed on my path of just continuing to take the more destructive coping mechanism, aka porn, it would have started eroding my desire, my confidence, and my ability to achieve the title of like a Marine Corps officer. And so, just basically becoming lazy, which is what porn caused me to become for like the last 9 years or so. Just all that compounded would have translated into just being content with what I had, which looking back on it now, I was not at all satisfied with what I had. And so I would have missed my mark by miles had I like stayed on that path. And I probably would be doing a 9 to 5 job, not achieving my full potential, not happy with life, and wondering, all right, what did I do wrong? Like why can I not achieve any of this?
Wow, that is really good insight, and I appreciate you letting us into your world there. So, as we continue to go down this trail, I want to understand more about what you tried in the past to help you quit and why you feel that those things weren't working for you.
So some of the things I tried that extreme discipline of okay, just say no every time the thought comes up, just fight against it, distract myself with something else. And that worked for in all of 4 seconds before it just fell apart and that whole discipline mindset just went away. The other thing, it did work for 4 months, but my freshman year at Norwich, I was a recruit, and so we got our phones and stuff taken away. We weren't allowed to use them. So naturally, like that took away that door, I guess. I closed the door, but it was only for 4 months. And then after 4 months, I went right back to it. And so that didn't help at all. And for me at the time, I didn't really consider emotional traumas in the past as like a huge indicator and trigger of like why I'm relying on porn for this. And so to me, it was essentially just, well, I'm just a lazy, no good guy. I need to like do something and then it'll all go away. I need to find a girlfriend. I need to find validation from other people. Then it'll all go away. And really, it was just skipping across the obvious answer of like, no, it's all emotional traumas. I don't need to find validation from anybody else except through Jesus. And finding that love with Him, like that'll it's literally perfectly tailored to what I need. So yeah, really, those just the discipline and trying to stay as far away from computers as I can. Like those are the two methods I've tried in the past. I also tried watching all these YouTube videos of like after you watch this, you'll immediately quit porn and all these kind of clickbait videos of I'm the only one who has the answer to quit it and it's so simple. So yeah, I basically tried everything underneath the sun and just ended up in the same spot.
Yeah. So, it's actually really interesting because you're kind of circling back a little bit. You mentioned that you had gone 4 months free, right? Did I hear that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what's interesting about that. I speak with a lot of guys who all say the same thing, and it's funny because I also would do the same thing. You go a week, and then you go back. You go a month, and then you go back. Some guys even go a year or 2 or 3 years and they always go back. So I want to talk about how did it feel when you did go back after thinking like, wow, I really thought that I had actually beaten this for good. Because everyone feels differently about it, but I'd love to hear what that was like for you and how your view of relapsing has changed since going through the program.
So my initial feeling wasn't positive by any means. It was more, dang, I just eliminated 4 months of like being free from this. And then that whole negative self talk of like, well, you're just as useless as every other guy watching this stuff. And you don't have the discipline or the tenacity to stay away from it for good. And this was also at a time that like I broke up with my first girlfriend, found out she was cheating on me while I was at Norwich and whatnot. And so it kind of really compounded the negative feelings of, man, I really am just like any other like loser out there. And so really I can only point this to really Satan telling me like, oh, well, you're feeling like a loser, which you are, so why not go feel comfort through porn again? And it was really just that dangerous slide that I went back right back into, of just knowing, well, I'm never going to pull myself out of this. I'm never going to get better. So I'll just sit with where I'm at right now. I'm not in jail. I'm not at the end of my wits or anything. So that must mean it's okay to do this. And yeah, obviously that's like the worst type of mindset to have, but it's the one I had at that time.
Wow. Yeah, and I mean, you're right. There's a lot of different factors that play into what contributes to a relapse, right? Like you've got what's going on inside of you emotionally, but you also mentioned that like there's outside forces. And ultimately, though it is the individual who takes the step every single time, it doesn't come without its challenges of all the different pressures, right? And so I want to touch on that a bit. Like you mentioned that you take away your technology, but with all the pressures, it's like one of the things that I've heard from folks is that you're even if you put up porn blockers, you're always gonna go and take them down. Like even if you have accountability, you're always gonna find a way around it. So can you tell me like what that was like for you as all the pressures inside you, around you, continue to send you back? Like what was that experience like for you?
Really, the pressures that I felt is more just wanting to feel good about myself and feel happy. Like during the 4 months, I was technology free essentially, with the exception of like doing my schoolwork. I had other stuff to worry about. Like I actually had that purpose. Like I just need to make it through today. I have 16 hours. I have to play their little games. Like my cadre will yell at me no matter what, this and that. And so it really just, and I guess I really can't make that distinction between like the immediate pressures put on me and like when there isn't any pressure. Like for me, during that time, it was all just the same. It was like, I just need to make it through today, I need to make it through this week. And so, I mean, obviously, after like the 4 months had ended, like I had a lot more freedom. And so, more or less at that point, it was just, I need to, I need to feel emotionally happy or satisfied again. Because, like, yeah, it really takes a lot of emotion out of you, like going through that type of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that inner pressure and inner turmoil and all of that, I mean, especially on a daily basis, can really start to take a toll on you after a while. So I'm curious because here's another thing that I hear from people a lot is that's it, I'm done. I'm getting help. And then you just go back to the same exact cycles. And so I want to talk about this on two fronts. The first front is how many times did you say enough is enough? And then second question is when did you know that you were serious about saying enough is enough, but that you needed the help to actually stay true to your word? Can you tell me about those things?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, is really after my freshman year, after I'd gotten out of recruit training and everything. And I know it kind of sounds like a paradox. Like on one side, I was kind of satisfied with just being stuck in that way, but also on the other side, it was I've seen what I'm capable of, what I can do, and how I feel when I'm not stuck on that for that 4 months. Yeah, obviously, like it wasn't fun being a recruit. Like anybody who says that is lying, but that's beside the point. But just being able to see like the capability and potential that I had made me realize like, man, this is what I missed out on all throughout high school and a little bit of junior high. And this is really something I want. I can really only thank God for giving me that insight of realizing like, hey, there's so much more better out there. And so that's when it first clicked with me. My relationship also improved with my mom a little bit after that. So seeing that relationship wise, I came out a better dude at least. So that kind of like it set conditions for like finally realizing later on down the road. And when I finally realized like I need to stop this and I need to use help, like good biblical based help, was really this spring, this last spring, of just realizing like, hey, I'm in this serious relationship. I know enough to know that if I bring porn into a marriage, it's absolutely going to destroy it. It's extremely detrimental to the health and well being. And this was also kind of part of like a 3 part process, I guess. Like after I met my now ex girlfriend, like I started coming closer to God. I started walking closer with Him, and I think he just told me one day, "Is like, hey, you really need to shake this. Like, this is not good. It's not honoring to God, and it's not honoring to whoever your future wife will be." And so that, and emotionally, I was also falling apart too. Like I said earlier, just any small inconvenience or stress or whatever it may be, just really kind of tore me apart and set me down a bad hill. And so, yeah, it was time to change. I'd also run across some of your Instagram posts as well, which I'd been following you from afar for a couple of years, and then finally something just pushed me in that direction. And so
So
it was a little rocky at first. Like I was, I was scared. Like I'll admit, like I don't know this guy. I don't know what he's about. I don't know if he's an online scammer. Like that was a thought I had at one point in time. But yeah, it just took a step of faith and it's worked out well.
wow. So I'm really curious about that. In spite of not really being sure how, like, I guess legitimate you could say this is. I mean, you're right. You know, there's a billion online businesses. I mean, how can we really vet them? You know, so I'm really curious. Like, why was taking that step of faith something that you're like, I have to? What was it that really pushed you over the edge to say, you know what, I may never have all the answers or all the right reasons, or heck, I may not even be sure what's going on inside of me, but I need to do this. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. So I do remember this pretty well. Like, I just kept praying and praying, kept asking God, like, I'm very unsure about this. Even some of my close friends I told them about, they're like, yeah, I don't know. Like, you, could you lose a lot of money and not benefit at all and then back to square one, or it might work out for you? And so I just kept praying and praying. And like the day I reached out to you, I still felt unsure about it. But it was almost like God was just kind of grabbing me and then just pushing me towards it. I still had self doubt, but my body just moved towards it. And so I was
Wow.
like, you know what? I'm going to take a huge leap of faith. I know whatever happens will happen for a reason. And I know God has like the best interest for me. And I know for a fact He wants me to quit porn. So, like, what's the worst that can happen? And so, yeah, really, it's just looking back on it now, it's pretty obvious. Like, wanting to quit porn and a biblically based porn recovery program. Like they belong. So yeah, that was a huge big thing.
That is awesome, man. So now that you've actually, like, you've gone through the program and you know you're on the other side of having made that decision to take that leap of faith, I mean, how do you feel about everything now? I mean, you've gone through the ringer and you've come out on the other side. Can we talk about how you feel about that decision to take that leap of faith?
Yeah, I'd say that is and most likely will be the biggest accomplishment of my life because I think that's the best thing that I could have ever done for myself. Yeah, marriage, whenever or if ever that'll happen, and like other stuff, that's important too. But in terms of like just aligning myself more with God and doing what's best for me, I think that'll easily be top one for a very, very long time. And so now that I'm on the other side, obviously I'm still like going through the process, but life feels a lot better now. Mentally, I feel a lot stronger. I feel like I've matured in many different areas, and just being able to wake up in the morning and say, I know I can accomplish this. It's going to be hard. I'll probably fail multiple times, but I know I'm going to get it at the end. It's just a whole different mindset. Like life isn't as gloomy anymore. It's almost like I'd jump through a wall of fire. On one side it was all burned up and charred, and on the other side it's green grass and happy smiling faces everywhere.
Wow, that's incredible, man. And I'm really proud of you for everything that you fought through because you really did have a tough journey through all of this, and I don't take that lightly. You took a leap, and it took a lot to see it through. And there is folks that I've seen them take that leap, and I mean the journey can be really rocky, but I'd say especially for you, I mean you definitely went through it. And so to see that you've gone through all of this growth, it really is incredible. It really is. And so I'm really curious to tap into that just a little bit more. When it comes to connecting with God more and growing emotionally and maturing mentally and all these different ways that you've seen transformation in your life. I mean, they had to go. It happened through the process, right? So I want to talk about that. What were some of the processes or exercises that we did that you feel really had a major impact on why you were able to go through all the growth successfully?
So some of the exercises, the ones that really stuck out to me the most were the it's one of the ones parents as pillars. It was basically just like a similarity with like a gratitude list. Like write down 5 things that you've noticed and that you like about your parents. Obviously, they're more tailored to like a time a parent showed a good emotion, a time that they did something wrong. How did you feel about that? And really, it's just kind of writing down what my emotions and thoughts were. So like I had so many thoughts and emotions. I got the good ones mixed up with the bad and vice versa. So to me, it was more just like I really don't feel anything. Like I just see everything as bad. And so it's more just sitting down and sorting them out of like your parent treated you like this one time you mentioned. How did you feel about that? Why? How do you feel about it now? And so really just kind of making me realize like it initially made me realize like man, I'm emotionally broken. like I I'm a bumbling mess right now. But after a while, I was just realizing like these were just emotions I had growing up. I didn't know how to control them. I didn't know how to express them in a healthy way. So I really can't give you a specific exercise, but it's more just like a compilation of exercises, really, of ones that just helped with like the emotional healing of it. And one of our calls that really stuck out to me and I still think about a lot is really just the time that I met Jesus. I want to say it was back in July, I think, early July. Yeah, he just put me through like a meditation, and like it was, if I could draw it, I'd be able to draw the entire scene of like what I was imagining and how I felt from it. But really, that was the first time I truly felt love, or I felt happy, and yeah, it made me cry a lot, but it was tears of happiness.
So can you actually touch on that a little bit more? I was very excited for you to mention that specific moment because one of the biggest parts of your journey has definitely been the emotional side of things. And so when it came to that experience where you did meet Jesus and you got to get a lot of emotional healing, I mean, that's a pretty healing and transformative part of this, right? So I'd love to dive in there a bit more and just get more of your thoughts on like, like paint us a picture for the folks that they're wondering right now, like what is this even like? Is this something scary? Is this something that I'm gonna have to go through? I feel like I've got a lot of baggage. Can this really help me? You know, things like that.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, I'll say it's the first time I've ever felt true peace inside. I didn't feel any tension. I didn't feel anguish, stress, whatever life was throwing me at the time. Like all of it just went away. In order to fully understand it, somebody would have to like experience it for themselves. But at that time, it was like right after my breakup, and so again, all the anger, confusion, anguish, and just whatever other negative emotion was swirling around. I kind of had two scenes playing in my head during that time. First one, I was like in a forest camp. It always reminds me of the Olympia National Forest up in Washington State. Just like really big trees, shadows everywhere, but still sunshine coming through. And there's like a log cabin out in this little clearing, and I remember just seeing myself walking up to it, and there's like a old guy, I assume probably in his 50s or so, with like a full size beard and whatnot, long hair. And normally, like if I'm walking up to a stranger, I'd still have a sense of being reserved and just kind of little, little pull back, making sure like I'm being safe and like I don't know this guy. But when I went up to this guy, like I just felt completely calm and at peace. Like I knew this guy forever. And the thing that really touched me emotionally was he just told me he's like it's okay, Kyle. Like you don't have to run anymore. Like you're safe. And that literally just made me drop my entire guard. Like I just felt completely at peace with it. And I remember him taking me inside the cabin and had all these cuts and bruises and scrapes on me, and he just bandaged me up. And it's almost kind of like a caring mother would do, like just that sense of connection, really, like that motherly love. And
Wow.
so during that whole time, I was just letting everything I had built up let go. I had all that anger and all that resentment from years past. All that's just going out the window. And that was the first thought going through my mind. And then after that, it was kind of like you see the old cartoons where they do it like scene by scene, but each scene was broken up into years of my life. So like years 7 to 9, 10 to 13, and whatnot. And each of those is when I first thought of it, it was just me walking through that, me walking through my first trauma of like not feeling validated or rejected or fears of abandonment. I could see those scenes played out within that. But then after a while, I like went back to it, and it was Jesus walking with me the whole time. Like the time I found my mom tried committing suicide a few times in a week. It just showed me sad and crying, but it showed him right next to me with his hand on my shoulder. And
Wow.
so just looking back on it, just realizing like I wasn't ever alone. I felt like I was alone forever, and all the stuff I had to go through, it was just me fighting it. But really, that was just me putting up a very, very big wall around myself, saying, I'm the only one in this, so I'm going to have to figure everything out for myself. And so, really, just looking to my right and seeing Jesus right there with me and helping me through it, even carrying me through it for most of it.
Wow. It's incredible, man. Thank you for sharing and for letting us in there. There's a lot of vulnerable pieces there, and I know that the folks watching who are wondering if this is the right step for them, I know that there's people out there that can relate and that can deeply empathize and understand what it is that you've not only gone through, but um, I can tell you, man, you're definitely giving them hope. You are literally living proof. I mean, you've gone through the fire and you've come out better on the other side. I mean, everything that you've walked through with family, with relationships, with just life purpose and finding direction and really living the life that you want to live, right? I mean, these are all things that you've had to address and remove the roadblocks to leveling up in every single one of these areas in life. Um,
Mhm.
so proud of you for everything that you've walked through. And I'm super excited to see where you continue to go with everything. So I'd love to take the next couple of minutes and just talk about what is freedom really like for you. I mean, free from tons of emotional baggage, free from old mindsets, free from old ways of thinking and believing, free from old ways of holding relationships and all these different ways that you were being sent back to relapse triggers and all that stuff. I mean, can you talk about what life is like now?
Yeah. So life is certainly very busy, in a very good way, though. After getting over that big chunk of just short playing my mindset that I had, I have all these crazy ideas of like, I want to own a business when I'm 25. I want to be in this position for financial maturity. I want to have all these goals and accomplishments by the time I'm this age or whatever. And so before then, none of that existed. It was more just I want to be in the Marine Corps and I'll just do the bare minimum to get there. And so at this point, it's all my potential that's built up from the last decade or so is all starting to come out now. And some days I'm just completely exhausted because my mind's constantly going with, I just want to do all this stuff and I want to get it going now, which I can't be anything but more than grateful for that because that, it gives me a purpose in life, really. It gives me a sense of mission that I have to go achieve and accomplishment when I do reach it. For mindsets,
Can
like,
we talk a little bit more on that really quick? I'd love to
yeah,
know more about like what kind of business have you been inspired to go after and all that? Because that's a big part of this, is that life purpose, and business is one of those things for a lot of men.
yeah, yeah. So this, I think it was back in May, I was actually given an opportunity to start up my own landscaping business, which before then you could have asked me like, hey, what do you think about landscaping business? I could have told you, yeah, no way. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't feel like doing it. I'll make up every single excuse underneath the sun not to do it. And when I was going, like when I was thinking about it, I was like, you know what, this could actually be a really good opportunity. It'll help me make money, which obviously that's a bonus of owning business. But more importantly, it'll kind of mature me in certain ways. Like it'll help with my leadership. It'll help me grow even more in my leadership. It'll give me that responsibility of knowing I have employees I have to pay, I have customers who have expectations I need to meet, I have to do basic project management really. And so it, it was really hard at first because I was figuring everything out. I already knew landscaping. I've been doing it for the last 6 years, but it was more just applying it in a business mindset. And so it's honestly been the best thing like that I could have asked for in terms of like just work wise, because I'm never short on work or customers. Like people are calling me every single day, and I can't tell you how many people have had to turn away. Like, sorry, I'm booked out for the summer. I'll call you if I have a cancellation, but that's about it. And
Wow.
so, yeah, I've learned a lot of stuff from it, and yeah, I'm miles ahead of where I was back in May.
Wow. That's incredible. So, I want to ask you a really practical question here about the business side of things. How does it feel using technology and using your phone to move the needle in your life and to really accelerate your future versus being stuck in things that take you down a path that you don't want to go on? Like, what's it like using technology in a new way?
I'd say it really helps me view technology for what it's truly created for, like phones. In today's society, people have Snapchat, Instagram, all that stuff on, which I have that. But really, the thing I rely on my phone the most for is communication, like communication between myself and the clients and potential customers. And really, it's kind of taken away all the minor distractions of like staying on my phone for 7 hours watching dumb videos on YouTube. And for my laptop as well. Like I now have to use my laptop for looking up prices for products and scheduling stuff and this and that. And so it's kind of, I'd say it's definitely matured me in that sense of not wasting my time on it. I've
Yeah.
stopped watching movies. The last time I watched a movie was back in May, because all the free time I have now is either me going to the gym to prepare for OCS or me having to create an estimate or a quote for a customer. And so once I'm done with that, it's usually, all right, I'm too tired. I'm just going to go to bed now, or going to go to the gym or go eat dinner or whatnot. So it's really narrowed my focus. I don't have as broad of a view. So all the distractions on the left and right limits, they aren't really there anymore.
So we've only got a couple more minutes here. I'm really curious if you could maybe talk about some of the numbers with us. We've actually seen this from a couple other folks that part of getting free from porn is really seeing your life accelerate, especially when it comes to money. So I want to talk realistically about some of these numbers because I guarantee you there's people watching this right now that know that their business and their finances is being directly impacted by their addiction, right? And so, could you maybe give us a little bit of insight into like how much do you think you would have lost out on had you not made these changes? And could you maybe give us an approximation of how much you have made ever since becoming this new Kyle?
Yeah. So in terms of like monetary loss, for me, just right now, this is more just like a summer job. It won't be a full time job, like annual job by any means. But this summer alone, I've been averaging about 4 grand a month that I've made. And that's after I've had to pay out my employees, pay for supplies and all that stuff. And so roughly I'll be making around 13 to 15 grand just for this summer, just for the 3.5 months I'll be working. Usually I would have been only making about 3 or 4 thousand a summer, and then having to rely on that to push me through the whole entire school year. So yeah, it's a tremendous increase in income for myself. And that in turn has also boosted my confidence because I can see I'm capable of making at least this much money in 3 months. And so again, that's where my potential is really starting to push at me of like, yeah, but what if you make this a full time job? You can make X amount of money. But what if you do this thing differently in your business practice? You can increase that as well. And I don't I don't want to focus solely on money as like that's my whole life ambition and goal.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good measure of like my potential and like my drive that I have because I'm not hooked on porn anymore.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that's a good point too, and it's good that you've established that mindset. A lot of folks bank on if I make X amount of dollars, then I'll be happy, or then I'll find meaning in my life, right? But it
Mm-hmm.
really sounds like what you're going for is, I mean, let's treat money like fuel. Let's treat it like energy, right? And so you now have more fuel, you have more energy to do the things that you want to do, and so you have a lot more freedom, a lot more options. Would you say that that's a result of all the effort you've been able to put in rather than maybe instead would you say it's a result of putting all of these efforts into progressing your life versus what you're previously doing with technology and being on your phone? Would you say there's a direct correlation there?
Absolutely. Like it's is a direct correlation in a sense that it represents what I've done, but also it's the indirect representation of what I am trying to prove to myself
Yeah.
and to prove all the lies I've told myself in the past that are wrong. Like the harder I work, the better I feel knowing like I'm doing this because my old self would tell me it's never possible. And all I want to do now is just prove that my old self was wrong. That my old self was a leech on society. Of
Mm.
like I'm gonna be a victim and everybody else has to cater to my needs. I'm not gonna use my potential. I'm gonna sell myself short on it. So everybody else has to basically help me along in life. And it's kind of disgusting to like think about it now. It's like I never ever want to be that victim ever again. Um,
So why don't we touch on that a little bit more actually, and then we'll wrap it up. You're talking about old Kyle. Could you like paint us a contrast of who, like, tell us more about who old Kyle was and who new Kyle is?
Yeah. So the old Kyle was antisocial, very quiet and reserved, and just didn't really have much to say of like substance. And I always viewed people in a negative light, like, oh, they're doing this and that because they're dumb or they just want attention. So wasn't ever happy, wasn't ever forward looking. Obviously, like I'd work hard, but it was because I tried using that to feel loved by the people I worked for. Like, oh, if I work hard enough, if I do all these right things, people are gonna like me, they're gonna love me. Basically, looking for that validation. And if I didn't do it, I'd go into a huge mental turmoil and absolutely just destroy myself until I went right back in that same position of I'm going to work myself into the ground so people can like me. And again, just not really seizing opportunities. Tons of opportunities came my way, but I just said, yeah, no, I'm not. I don't want to do that. I'm not good enough for it. It'll just never work out for me. And so I'd pass it along. And really, ultimately, the biggest thing was just having that fake face, like the second face to put on. Like, oh yeah, life's happy and dandy and everything's amazing. When inside, I was just completely crumbled.
So why don't we talk a little bit more about new Kyle? Like, if you could go full, well, if you wanted to go full time with the business, you could, and you could
Mm-hmm.
absolutely scale this. You've created this version of yourself that has all this energy and all this unlimited capability, right? So that's an option for you. But what does new Kyle really want, and what does new Kyle really feel capable of accomplishing? And can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So for life goals that I want to accomplish by the time I'm on my deathbed and whenever that'll be, I want to be able to look back and say I started a business, I got it up to speed and running, and I can step away from it where it'll still be self sufficient. Like I'll just get that passive income. I want to. My goal is 20 years in the Marine Corps. I want to be able to retire when I'm 44, partially retire. I want to own a few houses, like rent them out, so that's another source of income. And I want to also be able to volunteer and create this program where I help out boys who are kind of similar to me growing up, where their father might have been there, but emotionally and mentally, he wasn't really there. I want to be able to give them that solid traditional based viewpoint of life of like, I am a guy, I should be very proud that I am a guy. Here's what I can accomplish. The only time I'll stop accomplishing it is when I pass from this earth onto heaven. So that is a program I've been looking at more and more. Business wise, I can easily do that with a landscaping company. It's you can really do it with any company, just as long as I have like the basic knowledge of what a landscaper should do. So yeah, really, those just the big life goals I have for family. Right now, I'm just kind of working on growing myself. If I do get a girlfriend, like it'll be in the future. But right now, I'm not. I'm not really concerned with that. I don't really have the desire for it. It's not really out of hurt or anything. It's just I need to focus on myself and God first.
Wow, that is incredible. It really is, especially considering everything that you went through. So to see that this is really focused on, you doing right by you so you can do right by others. I mean, dude, it's amazing. At the beginning, you mentioned that you wanted to feel good about yourself, you want to be more happy, and I can confidently say that you definitely resemble more of that than when we first met. So I want to ask you this final question. Like, what would you say to someone who's on the fence about, taking that leap of faith the same way that you did? And what would you say to them about working with me and going through the program? And can you give us some insight there?
Yeah. So anybody who's on the fence about this program, their life isn't ever going to change if they stay indecisive about it. And this was actually a big topic I went over with my Bible study group a couple weeks ago was the indecision and the fear of change. For and I can completely understand why somebody would be so indecisive and on the fence because they don't know what it's like. They don't know the exact answers, but all it really takes is that little leap of faith. And just to compare like plea-based porn recovery program with like that urge or feeling of like I don't want to be in this position anymore. I want to change. I want to feel better. It's like it doesn't take much to know that those are perfectly aligned. Like why not do it? Why not take that leap of faith and just say I'm gonna be better on the other side of this? It's gonna be hard. Like it's not gonna be one meeting and done where it's like, oh, I feel better now. I'm all good. No, it's not a race. It's a marathon, really. Right? It takes that dedication and that determination and that loyalty, really, to be able to see through it. And there's signs everywhere. Porn is terrible for people. It doesn't take much to realize, like, yeah, porn is it's not good. There's nothing good about it. And so, in terms of like working with you, what really kind of comforted me was you had gone through that process. You didn't go to college, get your psychology degree or whatnot, and say, okay, now I completely understand all the emotions and hurts everybody goes through in this program. Like you've given so many personal examples. You've been vulnerable so many times, and really that helped me let my guard down, knowing like, okay, I'm safe with this guy. And your communication, like you've communicated really well with it, and even you can kind of sense when somebody's hesitant about it. Like you'll push a little bit harder, and it really works out well. So yeah, just down to the bottom of it, not claiming that do this simple mind trick and you'll be free from porn. Like you actually tackle the emotional traumas behind it, and you make it a practical course. You say like the most important thing is your walk with God. So how do you increase that walk with God and heal that emotional trauma?
Wow. I really appreciate you taking all this time to talk with us about everything that you've walked through and for giving us insight into your journey. It's really awesome seeing your transformation, and it's been an honor to get to help you through all of this. So, kind of a bonus question here. I didn't think that I was going to ask this, but you did mention here at the end, that I helped you to be like fully vulnerable, leading by example. And I'm curious, like, did you find that that was helpful in the journey? Did you feel like that was kind of a key component, knowing that you were getting the help that you needed, and that part of that was knowing that you could like be fully open in the process?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It it felt like I was finally able to open up about my true feelings without feeling judged, and
Mm.
really just being told like, hey, it's okay. You're not a terrible person for it. Like as hard as parents try at times, like sometimes I just invalidate the kid's feelings. Like, why are you crying? Like you shouldn't be crying. Just like suck it up. Like yeah, I've cried in front of you, and you're like, that is good. I'm glad you get to do that. It's like, wait a minute, like I can actually do that. Like it's okay. And so I don't mean to come off as like weird, but it's almost like you portray that father figure that I never had growing up. You also, in a sense, portray that like nurturing and caring figure from like a mother. Like it's finally just helped me let all that stuff out and work through it in a healthy way, and like bring me up to speed on like my emotional maturity.
Wow, thank you. I'm honored, and dude, this has really been awesome. So for anyone listening, I've been through it. I was an addict for 12 years, so I know what that journey is like. And if you want the exact steps that I've walked through and that Kyle's walked through in this entire journey to freedom, then you can give me a follow on Instagram at Freedom Worker Charles, and that'll be found in the description of the video. And of course, if you do need any one-on-one support or group support, then message me Freedom, and I'll help you to direct all of this energy that you've got that's going into porn, and instead you can take it and you can build something beautiful with it, because that's really what's going on. Is you just need a little bit of redirection. It's emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's physical, it's all of it. And so if you need that help, message me Freedom, and I'll help you figure out what it is that you're doing with either your purpose or your business or your marriage, or maybe you just need help nipping it in the bud, that final little piece there. So message me Freedom, and let's get you that help you need.